this is going to be an intro video for those of you who have yet to use Autopilot. Hopefully this is going to give you some clarity as to how to start and what to expect and some things that I've learned along the way that'll help you as you try and use Autopilot, because it can be scary at first if you've never used it before. So generally I have Autopilot on right now, but I am going to disable it so we can start from nothing. I'm going 80, speed limit 75, and what you're looking at, if you want to look up closer, is this steering wheel. So as you're driving, whether it's a freeway, highway, any straight road that has road markings that are clear, when you see this, this means Autopilot is possible, which is 2 clicks down with the right stalk. 1 click down will just simply do speed keeping, where it's going to auto brake and accelerate to keep that speed, but the steering is up to you. Now if you do 2, that's going to engage Autopilot. And right now, Autopilot is on, which means there's going to be auto steering as well as acceleration and braking, which is amazing on long trips as well as in traffic. It's going to be something that'll save your calf, it'll save your leg, and it just saves, more importantly, your mind and your energy. So I'm on a pretty long road trip. It's been about 3 hours of driving, and I feel like totally great. And all I have to do is keep my hand on the steering wheel, and that's going to keep the Autopilot from beeping at me. So something to keep in mind is when you are on Autopilot, you can keep your hands off the wheel. We don't advise, we meaning others, and Tesla generally doesn't advise that, but I've noticed anywhere, depending on the current conditions of driving, how much over the speed limit, the car, in terms of how fast it'll start to blink at you, meaning the screen's going to light up blue. It'll say apply slight turning force to the steering wheel, and now it's starting to blink blue. That was probably like 20-30 seconds. If you let this go long enough, the car is going to start to go faster in terms of the blinking, and then the beeping is going to start, and the car will eventually start to slow down. So as long as you're putting a slight force to the steering wheel, which I just did, it'll go away. Talking to an employee, they mentioned that you can just keep, generally if you keep one hand here, this is enough pressure to generally keep the Autopilot from, beeping at you and turning off. One employee told me just to keep 2 hands is like extra, force, and then you really don't have to worry about it. You can just keep your eyes on the road, you can, admire the view, and everything is okay. But I noticed if you are driving really fast over the speed limit, or if you are driving on the accelerator past the limit on Autopilot, the speed in which you get alerted to keep going is faster. So I've seen Autopilot alert me anywhere as little as 10 to 15 seconds, but as infrequent as 30 to 45 seconds, potentially up to a minute. It just really depends on your speed, and I don't know the exact formula, but basically, in my opinion, if the car feels less safe or you're driving more safe, it'll go longer without needing to alert you. Other things to keep in mind, this Autopilot's the one that's included with the car, so I didn't pay for the full self-driving. For those of you that are interested in buying full self-driving, which currently today, as of early September 2020, is $8,000 upgrade. That will give you some other functionality that I'm not going to cover too much here, but the one annoying part about an Autopilot that other cars, so other manufacturers like Honda, I think even Mercedes, BMW, that have this lane keep assist system, is those systems will allow you to actually change lanes, and then it doesn't disengage the system. With Tesla, if you change lanes, it's going to disengage Autopilot and you have to re-engage it. So that's a benefit, of course, of paying for the full self-driving, is that the car will actually change lanes for you just by turning on the turn signal. But in this case, with the included Autopilot, changing the lanes requires you to actually move the steering wheel, which will disengage, which I don't recommend. So I'm going to do it right now, but you have to do a lot of force. To see the car just jerked. You may not have seen it in the video, but it's really uncomfortable. So if I engage Autopilot again to change lanes, you're always going to want to turn your signal on before, and then it's a super smooth disengage. So you're not feeling jerky and your passengers aren't hating you for disengaging the car. But pressing the brake, using the signal and turning, as well as moving the steering wheel, will all disengage Autopilot. And generally, just put your signal on before you turn, so it's a lot smoother of a transition. The last things I'll say about Autopilot is check your settings. So when you're setting this up for the first time, It'll work out of the box. Like once you drive a little bit, you'll start to see the wheel and you can leverage it. But generally when you go to your settings, there are autopilot settings, and this will allow you to change things like the cruise follow distance. So how many car lengths do you want to stay behind the car that's in front of you when autopilot's engaged? Adding extra distance, the car will brake earlier versus braking later to keep a closer distance. And then just some other safety items around when you are turning on autopilot. How above the speed limit do you want to stay? Do you want your speed limit to be relative to the traffic? Or do you want it to be absolute, where it's like, this is exactly what I want the speed limit to be, is what the speed limit is, and then you can choose the offset. And then you have collision warnings, where off, late, medium, or early basically says if the car thinks you might have a chance of crashing in the car in front of you, then early is going to beep you a lot earlier versus late. It's like, hey, I'm going to alert you, but you better slam on the brakes really quick, or you can turn it off altogether and it won't tell you at all. I found that it kind of beeps really, really early, and that's why I have it on late, personally for me. And then I have all the other safety features of the car that basically says, hey, you got something in your blind spot, or you're departing the lane, let me beep at you. Obstacle aware acceleration, it's never triggered, but generally if the car detects you're going to hit something, it may actually accelerate if something's going to hit you from behind or something else. And then you have emergency braking as all part of autopilot. So generally, this thing can do 90% of the driving with normal long trips, especially in traffic. It's extra helpful. Changing lanes, kind of annoying, but not too much of a big deal, but highly recommended if you haven't tried it. You'll notice mental clarity and energy is night and day on long trips and just general freeway driving. And if you have like trying to do something with one hand or change settings, I would have autopilot on, because you're 6 times, I think the recent data from Tesla, 6 times less likely to go into an accident if you have autopilot engaged versus not. So from a safety reason, I would use it. So I hope that was helpful as an intro for those of you who haven't tried autopilot to try it out for the first time. It's quite wonderful, and it's just going to get better over time. So I'll talk to you in the next one. Have a safe drive. Peace.